and welcome to FinextraTV. I'm Liam Xavier, and you join us at the Temenos Community Forum in Copenhagen. With me right now is Takis Spiliopoulos, the CEO at Temenos. Takis, lovely to have you with us.
Thanks for having us.
So you had your keynote this morning, and you were talking a little bit about banking being at a defining moment. Is that an optimistic statement, or do you think banks are at real risk?
It's actually both. On the one hand, we see a lot of opportunities for banks. If they modernize, they can adapt. On the other hand, for those banks not really modernizing, they could have a real issue. And ultimately, defining is the moment, because you see a lot of changes in the marketplace. On the one hand, we have a lot of new competitors with very seamless offerings, which put a lot of pressure on the incumbents. On the other hand, there is obviously AI coming, which is driving a lot of change for banks. So for those that adapt, and I think for those willing to modernize, I think that it's a real opportunity also to gain market share. For the others, I think it's there is a risk of falling behind, and this is what we see.
And there's a mention across this forum of trust. It's one of the three pillars you've been mentioning. What does that earned trust look like when it comes to banks deploying AI in some of these more human vulnerable processes?
Yeah, trust is key, and it was and still is one of our big themes of our community forum this year. Because if you look at the partnership, which a strategic partnership which the vendor has with a bank, it's all about trust. It takes a lot of time to build trust relationships. It takes very little to break it. Temenos has been a trusted partner for banks for the last 33 years, and this is what we build on. It means also you're responsible of delivering exciting products. It's about delivering a seamless offering for banks which want to modernize. Now, in the age of AI, what it means is we need to provide banks an opportunity to embed AI into their offering, into their offerings for the customers. The way we do it is being the responsible offering, being providing the core, which is auditable, deterministic, and this is where the trust builds within the core. The other element of AI is what you can do in terms of having Temenos core being really the single source of truth. This is what regulators, this is what clients rely on and expect. And banking in general, and I think this is key to understand, we look at banking as probably the most complex workflows you can have, and also the most regulated area. So ultimately, AI is at the intersection of the two things. And you can't really just put Gen AI on banking, because this is something the regulator will not accept. And it's also something where there is no room for errors, no room for hallucinations. And this is where, at this intersection, I think Temenos has, as a key provider, has this element of, stability and trusted partnership. And I think this is where also Temenos has a very defensible mode. So this is why we position ourselves in the AI area as really the one provider who can bring you what you need, stability and trust.
So with that complexity and the need for no error, you need that stability. What does stability look like? What are the top three considerations for a stable innovation?
I think banks should really care about, picking three elements. One is you need to have a trusted vendor, where you have a long-term relationships, and they're providing, innovative products, but in a very sensible way, and which does not bring you additional risks and conflicts and disruption. The second element is when you think about, embedding AI, it also needs to happen in a governed way, so that you really have a path forward which is very responsible, governed, for also pleasing the regulators. And the third one is, I think banks are moving away from big bang replacements, especially on the core side. So there, we would advise banks to go with a progressive modernization journey. And this is, like the three elements which we believe, can provide the stability banks need.
Really interesting and plenty to think about there. Thanks for joining us in the studio.
Thank you, Liam.